All right, so I mentioned this off of mic earlier, but quiz number 4 is not going to have 3 sections in it. I know we went over 3 sections, but it's going to have sections 2.2C, 2.3A, but not 2.3B. So you're just doing the solving and graphing of absolute value inequalities, and then you're going to do finding slopes and finding x and y intercepts. That's all you're doing, okay? But we're not going to be like writing equations of or using an equation of line to graph a line on the coordinate plane. We're not going to be doing that, okay? So we'll do that next time. Okay, here we go. So we're gonna, I guess, first just solve and graph. Do a couple of examples on this. And then we'll move on because there's not too many of them. I think there's 4 of them. So I'll give you one that looks like the easier type and one that looks like the harder type on the quiz. Okay? There really is no middle in between. Like it's either kind of on the easier side or a little bit on the harder side. So number 1, we'll make it look like this. M minus 3 is less than or equal to, let's say, 7. Okay. Now remember, the first thing that I told you guys is once you have your absolute value isolated, you should decide whether or not this is an and or an or, right? So is this an and or an or? It is an and, right? And the way we know is because it's pointing at the absolute value, not away from it. Okay. So I'm going to put a little note over here on the side. Okay. So it's and if it looks like this or like this. It's or if it looks like this or like that. Okay, so that's how you get your and or your or. Okay, thank you. So this is an and problem, like we said. Okay, I'm just gonna highlight that. So the stuff in green is just a real quick, like a cheat sheet, I guess you can say, right? And make sure that you know how to tell one or the other. So we're going to have to break this up into 2 parts. Okay? So m minus 3 is less than or equal to 7. And m minus 3 is greater than or equal to negative 7. Remember the difference is right here. Okay, I'm just highlighting it again just to show you like that's what changed. Okay? That's what changed on the second writing. So now we just have to solve. So we'll add 3. So 7 plus 3, that's 10. So m is less than or equal to 10. And then we'll do the same thing on the other one. We'll add 3. So that's m greater than or equal to negative 4. So my answers are found less than or equal to 10 and greater than or equal to negative 4. So let me go ahead and draw this. And since this is an and problem, I need to draw like a couple things, or at least to show it visually. I got to draw a couple lines, and I got to find where they meet together. So I'm just going to do it the lazy way, so we're not spending too much time. Negative 4 is definitely smaller than 10, so I'm going to do it like this. Okay. If you want to do more tick marks, feel free, knock yourself out, but it's not necessary. So m less than or equal to 10. Okay, m less than or equal to 10. So that's going to be a solid dot at 10. Okay, and it's going this way. All right. So follow the arrow. Since m is on the left side, follow the arrow. If m is on the right side, then you got to go opposite direction, right? But both of these are on the left side, so that's good. The other one says m is greater than or equal to negative 4. So greater than or equal to is right here with a solid dot. Negative 4 going to the right. Okay, because that's the way the arrow points, to the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight what they have in common. Okay, so this is what they have in common right there. Remember, don't leave your answer like that. I understand what you mean. The answer's found in between. But make sure you draw it for me, okay? So you're going to put a solid dot here, a solid dot there, and then just connect the dots. Okay? And that'll be your answer. You can draw it below it. You can draw it at the top, however you want. Just make sure that I can see it. All right, any questions on that one? So this is considered to be a pretty easy problem because there's not much happening. Okay, there's not much happening. But then we can get some other ones that look a lot more complicated. So I'm going to show those to you guys right now. But this one, I mean, it just add 3, and that's basically all we have to do twice, right? So moving on to the second problem. Let me see, I just want to check. All right, so second problem here, number 2. We'll do something a little bit more, I guess you could say, like difficult. You can see there's a lot more stuff happening, right? And remember, I know that the absolute value, sorry, not the absolute value, I know the inequality is pointing to the right now. So you might want to say this is an OR problem. Okay, but remember what I told you, don't say and or until you've isolated the absolute value, because it could change, right? So let's start off right here. Let's move that -2. Let's add it. So that gives me a -4. Absolute value of v minus 4 is greater than -36. Notice the absolute value is still not isolated. I need to get rid of that -4 in the very front. So that -4 is multiplying. So what I need to do is divide it on both sides. Okay, so I'm going to divide both sides by -4. But if I divide both sides of an inequality by a negative number, what am I supposed to do? I'm going to switch the inequality, right? I'm going to switch the inequality. So absolute value of v minus 4 is less than 9. So notice it went from looking like an OR problem to definitely being an AND problem. Okay? This is an AND problem. I'm going to put that right there. That way I know these lines should be crossing towards each other. Remember when I told you that before, guys? So many of you guys were doing OR problems and they were colliding. Or you were doing AND problems and the lines were going opposite direction. That should be a clear sign that you're doing something wrong. Okay? If your problem is an OR problem, they should be going in different directions. If it's an AND, they should be crossing each other. If they're not, double check your work. Okay? I told you guys before, I don't know if it was your class or another class, but math has this really beautiful thing about it where it kind of tells you you're doing something wrong. If you know what you're doing and you're doing the work, you'll realize, wait, this doesn't make sense. This is AND and it looks like this. This is OR and it looks like this. Right? Like most problems can be checked while you do it. So pay attention to this stuff just in case. So here we go. So v minus 4 is less than 9 and v minus 4 is greater than -9. And again, I'm just going to highlight the change. I do that for the people who may not be here. That way when they look at the notes, they're going to say, why the heck did he highlight it? Hopefully they notice the before and after, right? So, all right, let's start adding. So we're going to add 4. V is less than, that's 13. And then I'm going to add 4 here. And V is greater than -5. So again, I'm going to do a little lazy graph here because I don't want to spend all day making these things look nice and pretty. It doesn't matter. It's just a line, right? So -5 will be on the left. 13 will be on the right. That's the most important part to me. If you're going to do it the lazy way, just make sure the numbers are in the right position. That way it makes sense. Because or else it won't make sense. The graph's going to look different. So here we go. First one is V less than 13. So less than is open circle. Going to the left. And then V greater than -5. So that's going to be an open circle at -5. Going to the right. Since this is an AND problem, I expect that they're going to collide. So there's the collision section, right? That's where they're going to cross each other. Okay? So, I'm going to make this as my answer. Now, by the way, I did see some of you guys do this on your quiz, but I had to mark it wrong because I didn't know. I didn't know what you meant. Okay? But I think I knew what you meant. But this is what it looked like. Some of you guys did it like this. I'm going to draw it under, then I'm going to erase it. You did one going left, and then you did one going right. But I couldn't tell what you meant. Like, I didn't know if you were saying it's the middle or if they shot the other way. I couldn't tell. Because you guys drew it on top of each other, and I can't see it. Right? If you use different colors, maybe, but you guys were using pencils. So it's really hard for me to tell if you knew what you were doing or not. I think you knew what you were doing, but I don't know. Okay? So I did mark those wrong because I'm like, I don't have an idea. That's why I do it on separate levels, right? One little higher so I can see, right? So whenever you draw them, try, if they're going to be colliding, try drawing just a little bit off so I can see, like, oh, there it is, right? And the bad part is that there was never like another answer like the black one that I have up there so that I can see you clean it up, right? You just kind of left it like that, and it was really hard for me to tell. And unfortunately, I can't give you the benefit of the doubt because that means that you could have been wrong, but I'm marking you right. I'd rather you mark you wrong and then you come and tell me, this is what I meant. And then I can be like, okay, I get it, right? So, yeah, just let me know. Any questions on these? So there's 4 of those. We already did 2 of those types of work. Okay, this one's going to include a drawing, okay? So it's going to say find the slope. I'll try to make it a small graph, nothing big. But it's going to be one of those where they give you a picture with the 2 dots and then you got to figure out the slope. Okay, so number 3. So it is a 4 by 4. Okay, 4 by 4, meaning 4 to the left, 4 to the right, 4 up, 4 down. But I'm only going to mark it up to 3. I'll put a dot here, here. There you go. Go ahead and draw that. I'm going to pause the video while you do that. All right, so we're back here. So for number 3, all they want to do is figure out the slope. So you want to count from the left to the right point, okay? So from the left point here, let me just use a different color. Starting from this leftmost point right there, okay? I'm going to go down to get to the next point. I'm going to go down how many times? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 times down. Okay, so I'm going to put a 5 right here. And then from that point where the arrow's pointing, how many times I got to jump over to get to the point? Well, just 1. So my slope is negative 5 over 1. Or if you just want to write negative 5, that's perfectly fine. Okay, so either one of these answers is just fine. Okay, so there's 2 of those, I think. Let me make sure. Yeah, there's 2 of those. So that's pretty easy, right? Just count. You're good. Any questions on that one? Remember, when you're counting, if you go up, that means your slope is positive. If you go down, that means your slope is negative. Okay? So, all right, there's going to be 4 finding the slope by calculating. Okay? So I'm only going to do 1 because they're all the same. It's just a bunch of them. But there's going to be 4 of calculating the slope by using the formula. So, let me put right here number 4. Find the slope of the line containing the points, and let's do -2, 3, and let's say 4, 10. I will do -10. So maybe put a -10. Remember, they can have negatives all over the place. They can all be positive numbers. It doesn't matter. Just plug them in correctly. Okay? So find the slope of the line containing those points. A little quick cheat sheet here. Your slope is given by this formula. Okay? So that's the formula you're going to be using to do these problems. Again, there's 4 of them. After that, we got 2 more questions. Well, I might just do 1 of them, but we have 2 more questions on the quiz, and then that's it. So the quiz is 12 questions total. Okay? So by doing 5 examples, we cover all of them. So as you can tell, I don't know what you guys think, but so far I don't think the test is too hard. The hardest part so far has been maybe the first 2 questions, right, where you got to break them apart and flip around signs and solve and stuff. But the finding the slope by counting, by finding the slope by calculating is not terrible, right? Not too bad. So here we go. So for number 4, remember what I told you guys. I like to label it. Let's put x1, y1, x2, y2. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. That's up to you. I do it so I don't mess up, okay? Because I will mess up at some point. So, and then I write my formula here. So m is equal to y2 minus y1. There's my formula on the side, okay? So y2 is negative 10 minus y1 is a 3. Remember, I like putting parentheses around the second number that I plug in. That way, in case it's negative, I don't forget to change it with the minus sign in the middle. And then x2, that's 4, minus x1, negative 2. So there's an example of why I like putting parentheses around it, right? Because now I can see a minus and negative. Okay, so let's go ahead and simplify this. That's going to be a negative 13. That's a 4 plus 2. So my slope is negative 13 over 6. Okay, and that's my answer. If I were to draw this line, which direction would it be going? Uphill or downhill? It is downhill, right? It would be going down 13 units and then to the right 6 units to find the next point. And then 13 units down, 6 units to the right to find the next one, etc., etc., etc. So that's how you find your slope. Like I said, there are 4 of these questions on your quiz, okay? So they're not terribly difficult. You just got to know the formula, and when you punch them in, or when you write them out, make sure you write it out properly, because honestly, you should not get these wrong. There really is no reason. It's just putting them in the right place. Let your calculator do the work. Okay? That's all you got to do. So please know that formula. All right, last one. And then we're done. So example number 5 says, or the last 2 problems on your quiz will say, find the x and y intercepts and then sketch the graph. So find the x and y intercepts and sketch the graph. Okay, so here's the equation for you guys. Let's put a go with that one. We are going to have to sketch it, so I'm going to make a real quick grid on the side. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. So I made it so it's 4 tick marks inside. This would be a 5 by 5 because extending it to the end would be 5 units in each direction. I'm going to find the x and y intercepts, and I'm going to sketch the graph. Now remember, the way I told you guys to find the x, y intercepts is to make a t-table, right, and use zeros. I guess you could say reverse diagonally, right? Not diagonally, like most people would do it from the top left to the bottom right. We're going to go top right to the bottom left. So it's going to look like this. I'll put a little cheat sheet here. Okay, this is what it should look like. It doesn't have to, but this is the easy way to say, okay, the first one I do is x-intercept, the second one is going to be the y-intercept. Okay, that's why I do it that way. It's not that that's the only way, it's a way that works. All right, so here we go. So I'm going to plug in 0 for y first, okay? So 3x plus, let me change the color here, 0. Remember, every time I plug in numbers, usually I'm going to put them in a parenthesis. 3x plus 0 is just 3x. So 3x equals to 3. That means that if I divide both sides by 3, x is 1. So 1. So my point is 1, 0. Okay? 1, 0. Let me kind of write that down with a different color. 1, 0. Now highlight it here. That way we know that that's the answer that we got once we solved it. And I'm going to go ahead and put that on the graph. Okay? So 1, 0 right there. 1, 0. Now let's do the other one. Let's let x equal to 0. So 3 times 0 plus y is equal to 3. Well, 3 times 0 is 0. So all I basically have is y equal to 3. So there's a 3 there. So this point will be 0, comma 3. And again, I'll highlight that so that we know that is the point. So I'm going to go to 0, 3 on my graph. I'm going to put it right there. Last thing I got to do is connect the dots, and I'm done. Okay? So connect the dots. That's it. Okay, this is the review for your quiz.